Chapter 20. They took their mugs to the bench beneath the gable end of the cottage which looked out over the garden. Sheltered by the wall, it was dry enough, but Marianne spread a couple of old feed sacks on it to guard against any residual damp. The detective might have preferred to sit inside, but she needed air and space. In the kitchen, she would have wanted to clutch herself and rock, to cry even. Out here on the side of the hill, she could look up at the sky, catch the crows wheeling, and breathe. Beside her, Georgie Fraser took a bite of flapjack and rested her head back against the wall. Marianne noticed the bump of the detective's larynx, larger than on your average woman. An abrupt reminder, like the knuckles on her long fingers, that she had not always been as she was. It gave her a funny feeling. Not once in the many times that she had spoken to Fraser or been in her presence had she ever felt her to be anything other than entirely female. And, given that she'd spent 15 years in a women's prison, she reckoned she had met every kind of woman there was. How peculiar that a soul that was essentially female should have lived much of its life in a male body. More evidence that God didn't always know best, whatever her parents had thought. "So, what did you want to talk about?" she asked, when it seemed Fraser planned to give her responsibility for starting the conversation. It felt easier to talk side on, both looking out over the garden than face to face. Perhaps the police should adopt it as a new interview technique. "I read your file, the court reports and so on," Fraser said. "You have access to all of that?" From the corner of her eye she saw Fraser smile gently. "We have access to pretty much anything these days. Data is the new gold." She ate a little more flapjack and sipped her tea. Marianne waited. "I was interested in how someone like you ended up with a murder conviction. Seems very unlikely." "'Cause I bake good cakes." That provoked a half laugh, a nod, and a raise of the remnants of flapjack. "You strike me as very gentle. Someone who would have to be pushed pretty hard to hurt anything." Somewhere in Marianne's innards something twisted. Not a pain, more a lump of discomfort, hard and oozing. "Your defence barrister maintained you'd responded with violence to an attempted rape." Not attempted. Successful. She had stabbed him as he heaved away on top of her, his trousers around his ankles. A pair of dressmaking scissors handily by the bed. Temporary insanity, one expert witness had opined. "I'm sorry," Fraser said. "This must be painful for you. I wouldn't bring it up if I didn't feel it might be important. For Anna Price." Marianne lifted one shoulder and pulled her cardigan tight around her ribs like a straitjacket. Always a barometer for mood, Pip left off snuffling around Fraser's feet for flapjack crumbs and put her paws up on the bench. Marianne patted her and the little dog scrabbled up and settled herself on her lap, leaving muddy prints on her jeans. "Your defence team," Fraser went on, "presented evidence for a traumatic event in your childhood that had triggered your response to the attack on you, that as a teenager you'd given up a baby. From a rape that resulted in pregnancy." Fraser's voice was slow, but not hesitant. There was gentleness in it, and a lower tone than usual, as though she might have forgotten to make it lighter and more feminine than its natural timbre. Marianne looked away, tracking the progress of a pair of magpies high in a birch tree. They were bickering, or chattering anyway, as all corvids did, one of their habits that she liked. She thought of Joe Ingalls and his university thesis, of his fascination with the hooded crows up by the chair. Maybe he was up there now, watching them, still reeling from Russell's accusation. Martin Davis, friend or no, seemed to have abandoned him and was volunteering on Donnell's dig, well and truly wrapped up in Trustafarian Clare. "I wondered how much you knew about Anna Price." Now Marianne turned her head back towards Fraser. It seemed an abrupt non sequitur. "Nothing, except she died at the Devil's Pool, and that she'd been arguing with a man up at Titterston Clee." "Anna Price was adopted," Fraser said. "Her head teacher told us she'd been looking for a birth mother. Anna's adoptive aunt has confirmed that she was adopted as a newborn in 1999, When you were 15. That same year you gave up your baby. The cawing of the magpies was suddenly very loud. The brook, too, in full spate after the night's rain. The sound of rushing water filled her ears until it was almost a roar, and she closed her eyes, felt a scrabbling on her thighs, the mug slipping from her hand and warm wetness in her lap. Fraser's voice sounded through the water, though she could make out no words, and a firm hand took the mug from her fingers. She folded forward, felt the warm imprint of a palm on her back pushing her head down towards her knees, an arm encircling her. When the dizziness passed, there was quiet. As she sat up, Fraser removed her arm, and Marianne felt suddenly cold. You spilled your tea. Marianne looked down and saw the damp stain on her jeans, not enough to wash away the marks left by Pip's scrabbling paws. Fraser's hand lay on the bench near hers, relaxed, the painted nails curling in towards the palm like an invitation. Marianne fought the urge to grip it and pull it to her face, to rest her head on it and sob. I'm sorry, she said, batting away Fraser's protestation that the apology should be hers. When you said... No more words would come. I should have expressed it differently. How? What difference in expression might have minimised the shock? You're saying that you think I was Anna Price's birth mother? That she was the baby that they took away from me? No, Fraser shook her head. I have no evidence for that at all. I just wondered if she might have believed that she was. That she might have been coming here to find you that day. Her friend, Sally Parker, told our team she'd been excited, said she'd made a breakthrough. Marianne rubbed at the wet patch on her jeans, smearing the muddy paw prints. Pip was lying on the ground at her feet, every so often squeaking softly. Maggie lay further away, her head pillowed on her paws, sombre eyes on the two of them. Marianne's stomach still twisted with nausea. Perhaps it was just as well that she'd spilled her tea. Why would she think so? How would she even know about me? She'd stayed here, hadn't she? A couple of years ago, I know, but she'd remember you. And the probation service reported having inquiries made about you recently by someone claiming to be acting on behalf of your child. I understand you changed your name. Perhaps it took her a long time to make a connection. Of course she had changed her name. The girl she had once been no longer existed. She had been extinguished. Not by any conviction for murder, nor by the shame of a prison sentence. That girl had disappeared when she was 15, one summer night in the sand dunes. There was nothing left of her. Your baby was a girl. Fraser's voice, hesitant now, perhaps worried she might faint again, broke through the smell of salt and dune grass, the feel of sand beneath her. She breathed deeply, sucking in the scent of damp Shropshire soil and soggy vegetation from her garden. Life, reality, the here and now. I never knew her, she said. Never held her, fed her, heard her breathe, watched her sleep. A chatter in the treetops broke the mood. More magpies joined the troop, quarrelling at the tops of their voices. Maggie scrambled to her feet and thundered towards the hillside, barking, Pip tearing along at her heels. You haven't tried to trace your child? Marianne told herself that there was no judgment in the question, though it might well echo around her head in the small hours when sleep would elude her. Again she thought of Roger's stash of single malt in the barn, now sealed out of reach by scene of crime tape. Each evening she smelled the young digger's cannabis smoke as she walked back to her cottage, drawn by the scent like the Bisto kid. Perhaps tonight she would join them, blot out her brain and sink into dreamless sleep. You're sure that Anna hadn't tried to contact you? The DI asked. A bitter laugh escaped her. It's hardly something I'd forget. No, I know. I'm sorry. To have brought it up, I mean. Anything that we know about Anna might help us find who killed her. Perhaps Fraser thought that Marianne, in her rage at being tracked down by an unwanted birth child, had smashed her over the head with a rock and left her face down in a watery grave. "Will you be all right?" Fraser asked. "This afternoon and evening? Working, I mean." Marianne shrugged. There was no alternative. Alice had asked for the evening off, and who could blame her, working 7 nights in a row, even without all the drama of a police investigation. At least tonight there would be fewer mouths to feed. With Roger's Woggle trainees gone and their places paid until the end of the week, there would be no pressure to fill their beds. Not that she imagined she would have many guests wanting to stay now that the news was out. Pickthall had stationed a police car at the bottom of the lane, but she assumed it wouldn't be long before journalists and social media detectives made their way up over the Stiperstones Ridge and down into Perkins Beach. "I could lend a hand," Fraser said, "washing up or whatever, since it's pretty much down to me you're feeling the way you are." "You?" Marianne couldn't help but laugh, short, almost a bark. "I think you already have a job, don't you?" "That's debatable," said Fraser. "I knock off at 5, and Pitbull made it clear he won't be paying me any overtime. In fact, I'll be bloody lucky if I'm not back on horsebox theft tomorrow."